Let's talk about classful IP addressing in our TCP/IP Basics course. And classful IP addressing is basically a network architecture that was used from 1981 until the introduction of classless interdomain routing, or CIDR, which we talked about in previous videos, in 1993. So the method divides the IP addresses into these 5 different classes in IP version 4. And it's based on the leading 4 address bits, which I'll explain here in a second. Although it is a bit outdated, it's kept alive for one reason, and that is test creators that create these certification tests insist on putting them on, even though it is no longer used. So let's start with a Class A address. Class A starts with, the first number has to start with a 1 through a 126. So let's take a look at an example. So here's an example, 100.0.0.1. We don't really care about what comes after the first octet, which in this case 100 is between that 1 and 126 number. We only care about that first octet, and that's it. After that, octets 2, 3, and 4 can be whatever numbers they need to be that fall within that 0 to 255 range. But the first number has to be 1 through 126. So it does use a subnet mask, and it has to be 8 bits, which means 255.0.0.0. So it's 2 to the 8th power, once again, as we've discussed, which means that in this case it's going to be 255, because we always start with the number 0, and end at 255, so that's 256 addresses. So the subnet mask is going to be 255.0.0.0. So let's talk about Class B. The first number starts with either a 128 all the way through a 191. So let's take a look at an example here. This would be a 150.0.0.1. And once again, we don't care what happens in octets 2, 3, or 4. It's only the first octet that matters in this particular case. So 128 through 191, 150 definitely falls within those numbers. Subnet mask, instead of being 8-bit, it's now 16 bits. So 255.255.0.0. So that is a Class B. So you can see that the network side is going to be evenly distributed with the host side. So you're going to see the same amount of networks as you are on hosts because it's split right down the middle. Where's 127? So we went from 1 through 126, and we went from 128 to 191. So we skipped 127. Well, 127 is reserved for a loopback address, which is basically used to test whether TCP/IP is working on the network card itself. So we leave 127 out of either a Class A or a Class B. Let's talk about Class C. The first number is going to start with a 192 through a 223. And once again, we'll give an example, 200.001, and we only care about the first octet as usual, and 200 definitely falls within that 192 through 223 range. So that makes it a Class C. The subnet mask is 24 bits, so we went from 8 to 16 to 24 bits. And an example here would be 255 3 times .0, so that would be a /24. Because it uses the first 24 bits. So in this particular case, this is used in a network where you don't have a lot of hosts, but you may have a lot of subnets. So you're only going to get 254 usable addresses in a Class C network. So it's perfect for a small network that doesn't need a lot of hosts. Class D, yes, there is a Class D in TCP/IP, and the first number starts with 224 through 239, so not a really large set of numbers here. So an example here would be 225.0.0.1. Class D doesn't support subnet masks, so unlike Class A, B, and C, where we had 8, 16, and 24-bit subnet masks, there is no subnet mask in a Class D network. And it's only used for one thing, and that's multicasting. And multicasting is, once again, where you send off from one computer to many computers, things such as video, or something where you need to broadcast out a whole bunch to a whole bunch of computers from one computer, and that is called multicasting. And I've seen this happen before in corporate situations where you might have a company video that needs to be streamed out to multiple different locations. So you can multicast that video out, and it goes out over 224 through 239, one of those addresses. Class E, you're never going to actually use a Class E because it's used for scientific purposes only. And the first number is going to start with 240 through 255. An example is going to be 250001. That definitely falls within that range. Class E also does not support subnet masks, very similar to Class D in that particular case. And it's used only for research. So we don't know who's doing this, who's doing the research, when it happens, where it happens. It's just reserved and we can't use it. Class full IP addressing is useful information to know, but not necessary for implementation in the modern network. It's very useful information for passing certification tests, however, such as the A+ and the Network Plus tests. Coming up in the next video, we're going to talk about classless IP addressing, which is what we are currently using.